We all strive to be happy, but in Finland they seem to have figured out the formula. That's because for the fourth year in a row, this cold Arctic nation has been deemed the world's happiest country by the World Happiness Report. So on today's episode of the Rooster Report, we're going to be diving into how the World Happiness Report works, why Finland is so happy, and most importantly of all, how we can use Finland as a model to make our own lives just a little bit brighter. But before we do, if you want to brighten up my day, please like, subscribe, and smash that notifications button so that we can deliver you videos that make you happy as well. Now, to understand why Finland is so happy, we have to first answer a very complex question. What is happiness? Now, rather than bore you with existential philosophy, for the sake of this video, we'll make things simple and defer to the experts, the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. According to them, happiness can be defined as a state of well-being and contentment. And for all intents and purposes, this seems to be close to what the World Happiness Report looks at. After all, while some have tried to quantify happiness by assigning numeric values to things such as standard of living, average wealth, or political stability, the World Happiness Report does not do this. Instead, their methodology is based on subjective, self-perceived satisfaction. Using data from the polling company Gallup, they combine interviews from more than 350,000 people in 95 countries. Interviewees are asked to score factors of their life on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the worst life possible and 10 being the best life possible. What is asked includes questions such as, did you smile or laugh a lot yesterday? Were you treated with respect all day yesterday? And do you think the police or a stranger would return your wallet if you lost it? Then, once all of this data is compiled into a list, the report then uses said list to determine how much levels of GDP, life expectancy, generosity, social support, freedom, and corruption may have impacted the ranking. If we look at the 2021 results, we see that not only is Finland at the top, but a number of other northern countries are near the top as well. In fact, Iceland ranked as number 2, Denmark is number 3, Sweden is number 6, and Norway is number 8. While other major countries such as the United States came in at number 14, while Canada came in at number 15. Of course, this begs the question, why did these northern countries do so well? After all, intuitively, this seems a little strange, as these are cold Arctic countries that aren't exactly the most hospitable places on the planet. However, the main reason seems to stem from their socioeconomic conditions and culture. You see, most of the happiest countries tend to have a lot of social programs. And in Finland, which ranks number 1, these include free healthcare, free education from preschool to university, a universal 9 months of maternity leave with full pay, or 3 years of maternity leave with partial pay, a universal 4-week paid vacation in the summer and 1-week paid vacation in the winter, and plenty of grants for those who are in school or who have children. While these services are paid for with higher taxes, for example, the sales tax in Finland is 24% in comparison to Canada's 13 to 15%, because the services that people get are so great, they generally don't seem to mind. This is crucial because it means that both extreme poverty and extreme wealth are almost non-existent. And this has created a higher average happiness level because the extra tax money taken from the richest 1% is going into services that are worth more than what the average Finnish person gives away in taxes. And while this means that the wealthiest people in Finnish society are worse off due to their extremely high tax burden, the system seems to work. But this leaves one important question. If Finnish millionaires and billionaires are having their money spent to make other people happy, why don't they just leave and go to a lower tax country? Well, the answer to this has a lot to do with Finnish culture. You see, in most other countries, people relate success to having a lot of money, and therefore a lot of wealthy people are against higher taxes because it prevents them from being successful. However, in Finland, money is a very taboo subject, with most millionaires and billionaires not seeing themselves as any different than the average citizen, and as such they seem to love their work but not look to their money. In other words, Finnish culture seems to redefine success not as being rich, but in doing work that is valuable and enjoyable. This is helped by the fact that Finland is very homogeneous, as it has a culture, language, and value system that is very unified across the country. As such, while Finns don't get the influx of ideas that come from multiculturalism, their mindset towards things like money and wealth have remained relatively stable. Finland also enjoys a very low rate of corruption and high rate of trust in the government. As a result, rather than try to protest against government interference in their lives, as is popular in much of the United States, Finns generally see the government as a positive institution that can provide them with services that would be near impossible to receive without government involvement. After all, it is physically impossible to get something like free university for all without government intervention. As a final point, this homogeneous culture likely stops a lot of Finland's wealthiest people from leaving the country despite the high taxes. After all, unlike, say, the Italian, German, or Spanish diasporas, the Finnish diaspora is very small, and even those who have emigrated from Finland tend to live in other high-tax countries such as Norway and Sweden. Therefore, since many Finns genuinely do love their culture, language, and people, they choose to stay even with the high taxes. However, if there was, say, a large Finnish community in the United States or Canada, perhaps more would make the move. But because this isn't the case, this high tax system has worked wonders for increasing Finnish happiness without causing those who fund it to leave. Now, generally speaking, a similar analysis can be made for most of the other happiest countries, such as Iceland, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. However, it's worth mentioning that by some metrics, none of these countries are in the top 10. After all, people from these countries tend to be relatively reserved, and so if happiness was a measure of, say, openness to other people, they would probably rank quite low. Likewise, if happiness were to be a measure of average disposable income per household, a country like Finland would get smoked by the United States, as while Finland's comes in at just under $30,000 per household, the United States' comes in at just over $45,000 per household. Thus, when we look at the happiness report, what we see is that the top countries aren't the richest, aren't the friendliest, and aren't the most open, but that instead they are the countries where everyone is the most content. And from this analysis, it seems that there is a correlation between lots of government services, little income inequality, and higher happiness so long as the average person is reasonably well off. Yet, we should remember here that many things in these reports are subjective. After all, if we look to a less authoritative list, such as the Happy Planet Index, the results are much different. Last published in 2016, this index uses the same Gallup poll on subjective happiness as is used by the World Happiness Report, but then shakes things up by accounting for life expectancy, inequality of outcomes, and carbon footprints. Under this model, Costa Rica comes out on top, and this is mostly due to its relatively high spending on education and environmental protection. However, in contrast, Finland only ranked 37th on this list, while Canada comes in at a terrible 85th place and the United States at an abysmal 108th place. And while it should be remembered that this index is a lot less reputable than the one used to rank Finland as number 1, the discrepancy is still worth keeping in mind. And before I leave you today, I think the final question we should ask ourselves is what we can learn from this list in order to make our own lives happier. After all, while Finland's system would be a great model to implement in theory, the reality of such policies becoming mainstream in a matter of days or months is quite low. However, that doesn't mean that we can't make changes on both the micro and macro levels. On the micro level, the best thing you can probably do is to not value money over, say, friendships, family, and personal goals. And while this may seem a little obvious, the truth of the matter is that many people at least partially measure success by the amount of money they make. So if you don't want to follow the majority, you need to at least partially shift your thinking and not cave in to peer pressure so that you can strike a good balance. On the other hand, On the macro level, you need to advocate for policies that won't just make you happy, but that you believe will make the majority happy without going against any of your moral beliefs. This is, of course, subjective. And so while increasing taxes and expanding social services may be seen as increasing happiness for one person, lowering taxes and decreasing social services may be seen as increasing happiness for another. However, in either case, it's important that you put some deep thought and research into your stances, and then advocate for them in your community so that these beliefs become government policy and, hopefully, make your town, city, province, state, or country a much happier place. That's all we have for you today, everyone, and thank you all for watching. Let us know in the comments down below what you will do to make your life a little happier. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and smash that notifications button so that you can watch more videos just like this one. Until next time.